And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, I'm going to be talking about a player who, in my opinion, did not deserve to win the MVP for a specific year. And the year that I'm talking about is in 2001. For those of you who don't know who won the MVP in 2001, it was the one and only Allen Iverson, the 6-foot shooting guard that, a lot of people, he has a lot of fans in Philly. He has a lot of fans in a lot of media outlets and a lot of viewers. They really like Allen Iverson. He's a short guard. He has such tremendous talent in the league, and he made a name for himself for being one of those short guards that was able to create shots off the dribble, and he brought a lot of oohs and ahs to the crowd. And a lot of people, they really, really like watching Iverson, and they really like Iverson's game. And, Iverson ended up winning his only MVP in 2001. And, the season gets talked about a lot because, he's a shorter guard and he was able to lead a really decent team to the NBA Finals. And obviously, I understand the MVP isn't talking about just the playoffs as well as the finals. It's just the regular season. But really, that's another big reason why this season gets talked about. It also gets talked about because of Iverson's playoff performance. And Iverson, in the regular season, he ended up averaging 31 points, 4 and 5. Like, he ended up averaging 4 rebounds and 5 assists, as well as shooting 42% from the field, missing 11 games in the regular season. And again, the averaging 31 points per game is very, very impressive. But in my opinion, the real MVP of this season should have been Shaq. Easily should have been Shaq in this year as opposed to somebody like Allen Iverson in that year. I mean, Shaquille O'Neal in the regular season, in the playoffs, he was completely different. And in the regular season, he was also just a completely different animal, especially on the Lakers. And in 2001, somehow Shaq ends up getting put in the third place voting for MVP in 2001, which I just don't understand, because he ends up putting up 28 points per game on 12 rebounds as well as getting 3 assists. And the 3 assists aren't really that impressive, but he also ends up shooting 57% from the field, which is a league best, as well as 57% from inside the arc, which is also a league best. And Shaq's numbers, when you look at his advanced stats, they all completely destroy Allen Iverson's advanced stats, because obviously, you would expect a much taller center to be able to rack up much better, averages, much more efficient averages in the paint, getting layups and getting dunks in the paint, as opposed to the efficiency of a much shorter guard. So it makes total sense how Shaq would have Allen Iverson completely beat in the efficiency category, which in turn would mean that I would much rather have Shaquille O'Neal and his production on the team more so than I would have Allen Iverson's production on the team. And the fact that Shaq only ends up making it third in MVP voting for this year, really, I'm just questioning what were the voters thinking, because he really should have won back-to-back in this year. And again, Iverson, he had a really great season. I'm not saying that Iverson didn't have a great season, but I would much rather have Shaq's efficiency and his numbers and what Shaq was averaging in that 2001 season was inhumane. And the fact that the Lakers capped it off with an even better postseason run. They only ended up losing one game, and that one game was to the 76ers. But aside from that, they only ended up losing one game. Him is in the chat. What's going on, my guy? Nothing much. Just talking about how I feel like Shaq deserves the 2001 MVP over Allen Iverson. And aside from the fact that Iverson had a much better, a much more popular season, because let's face it, Iverson's 2001 season is one of the most popular seasons in the entire history of the NBA. And really, if it wasn't for what do I want a hot take from you, or do I think that's a hot take? I mean, I don't really think it's a hot take, because I feel like Shaq easily had the better year in 2001 than Allen Iverson did in 2001, mainly because his advanced numbers and his efficiency, they all just completely destroy Allen Iverson's in that year. And there isn't really, I'm surprised that Shaq, again, he was, for some reason, he was third in the MVP race, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. I would expect him to be at least second in the MVP voting, and he really should have won the MVP. He should have won back-to-back, because he ended up winning in 2000, the 1990-2000 season. But him is saying an MVP is saying that LeBron doesn't deserve an MVP in 2010. I respectfully disagree, because LeBron deserves every MVP he gets and maybe more. So I respectfully disagree with LeBron not deserving an MVP in 2010. And if anything, he should have won in 2010, should have won in 2011, and should have continued to win until he was 90. But anyways, aside from that, yes, I do think Shaq deserves this MVP. If you think otherwise, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this MVP race. If you would rather, Iverson keep the award, if you would rather somebody else other than Shaq wins the award, or maybe somebody completely different in the MVP race, maybe even Tim Duncan deserves the MVP award in 2001, aside from somebody like Allen Iverson, or maybe even somebody like Kobe, maybe somebody like T-Mac, somebody that we haven't heard from in the 2000s yet. But aside from that, that's all I have from you on this segment. Again, we enjoy hearing what you guys have to say. And thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. So remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Again, we love hearing what you guys have to say on the show. And whether you have a burning question, a hot take, something you've been dying to say, we're all ears. And we do love to keep the conversation going. If you really want your comments to get featured on the show, you could use Super Chat, and it definitely will get featured on the show. It's a great way to support the channel as well. If Super Chat isn't really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker and use gsmcpodcast.net if you really want your comments to get noticed by the show. We're so grateful for every single bit of support. We do have time for one more question. Him in the chat says, in 2009, Kobe was going insane and had one of the best years of his life. Yes, I know. Everyone loves talking about Kobe Bryant and what he did in 2009, but I'm sorry. LeBron, he was the better player. He was just the best. I mean, Kobe, he ended up winning an MVP in 2007. He already got his MVP, and he should have won a few more in the earlier years, I think that. But in 2009, LeBron easily should have won the MVP. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I mean, when you look at LeBron's averages in 2009, LeBron was just on a completely different level than a majority of NBA players. Like, I'm looking at his numbers right now. LeBron averaged, he played in every single game in 2009. Well, except for like one game, he averaged 28 points. And I mean, obviously, he ended up winning the MVP in 2009 with those numbers. He averaged 28 points, 48% from the field, 34% from three, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Like he was just a completely different. He was just a completely different demon. Yeah, he averaged 7.6 rebounds and 7.2 assists. But I mean, like the 7.2 assists, that's basically 8 assists. And I mean, like really, he was the best player in the entire NBA of that year. Like there was no question about it. And I mean, the Cavs, they had a really good record to show for that too. They ended up winning 65 games, which you have to that ultimately gives you a boost in your MVP rating. Like if you win, if you're the best player on the best team and you win a majority of the games, then chances are you're going to end up winning the MVP. Like that's almost always going to happen. Like they ended up winning 66 games, and winning that many games, and like you being the clear reason why you're winning so many games, like obviously you're going to win the MVP in that year. Like it makes no question about that. And I understand Kobe, he ended up winning a championship in that year, but again, we're only talking about the regular season. So and I understand Kobe, he played like in one more game than LeBron did. And the numbers, they're rather similar, but again, I would much rather have LeBron than Kobe. It's just that simple. But that's all that I have on for this final segment. Thank you for that question. That was a very interesting question. And again, I would much rather have LeBron. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys think that LeBron should have kept the MVP in 2009? Do you think it should have gone to somebody else? Do you think somebody else should have won the MVP in 2010? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. And as always, take care. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna